Let's say good morning to the team. Good morning, Chloe Friesen.
Good morning.
Good morning, Abby Adeyemi.
Good morning.
Good morning, Kevin, who can't doesn't have a mic, but he's given us the woo.
Kevin.
Hey, Kevin. How's your weekend, Chloe?
It was pretty good.
Right?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time outside. I'm a big fan of just a picnic blanket and my yarn.
Oh, Saturday.
And I
for me.
crochet. It's beautiful.
Oh, Saturday for me. I think I had probably, literally, if I would have boogied, I had maybe 45 minutes of like yard work things to do, little planting here, there. And it took me 5 hours because I enjoyed it that much.
Oh, nice.
I put a little plant in, I'd sit down.
Talk to it.
Hang out. I do talk to my plants.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. I hang out with
I
my
do too.
dogs.
Yeah.
I did, especially the ones that were waterlogged. I gave them a big pep talk.
You got it.
Like, Snapdragons, you can do it.
You need to talk to them.
Right?
You have to.
Yeah. So what are we saying to the plants today, buddy?
Well, the northern part of the province is sunny, and except for Churchill, which is cloudy. But Winnipeg, we are starting with clear skies at the moment. It's 10 degrees. Just grab your tea or coffee. It's going to be a lovely day. We're expecting plenty of sunshine to kickstart the morning. Then the clouds will gradually move in as the day progresses. Now, despite that cloud cover that we'll be seeing, temperatures will be climbing to a pleasant 23 degrees later. And it's one of those perfect days like Chloe enjoyed outside activities. You'd want to enjoy it, okay? But don't stay too long outside. This evening, we'll be transitioning into more clouds. It's going to get thick, and then some rain showers expected to make an appearance, and we're looking at around 5 to 10 millimeters of rain fall. So don't forget to grab your umbrellas if you're going to be heading out and spending some time outside. But right now in Winnipeg, today is starting off sunny. Some clouds will roll in later, followed by rain tonight, and then tomorrow will bring a mix of sun and clouds. We're heading to a high of 23.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Back to Chloe now. Let's look at the commute, Chloe.
Yeah, haven't heard anything so far. That's kind of normal for this time. I had a lovely little bike ride in. The air was nice and crisp, and I'm very happy for the commuters who are heading, me and my directions, heading into the downtown. The sun is currently rising, and it's like you can see it through the buildings, and
Heading
it's peeking
east.
through. Oh,
It's always gorgeous. At this
gorgeous.
time of day.
So enjoy that commute. If there is anything that is making your commute less enjoyable, you can call us about it. Any stalls or collisions out there, give us a call out on our commuter line, 204-788-3093.
Well, as Heather mentioned, let's dig into some details of what happened outside the Humane Society over the weekend. There were 10 animals. They were abandoned, as she said, right on the doorstep this past weekend. So the Winnipeg Humane Society shared on Instagram, they put a post up that showed a dog tied to a tree, left there by its owner with a note, also a box sealed with 6 rats, and then they had a picture also of a cat with 2 kittens in an enclosure. CBC's Gavin Axelrod spoke with Winnipeg Animal Services General Manager Leland Gordon about this, and also about if you do have to abandon your pets. I know that people have that moment where you feel, I shouldn't say abandoned, but give them up for a lot of reasons. It is better to, I would just say, obviously give them up to a place that can care for them. But there's a better way to do it than leaving them on the doorstep in the dark of night, which is also part of this story. But here's Leland Gordon in conversation with Gavin.
Yeah, so you know what? I saw it and empathized to the team at the Humane Society. That's lots of animals to intake in one day. But unfortunately, we're seeing more and more people who are struggling financially day to day, whether or not they're living paycheck to paycheck, whether or not they actually are unemployed. Some people don't have, stable households. And these people are going out and then getting a dog, right? And we emphasize for people who are struggling, of course, but if you're struggling financially or you don't have a stable home, you should absolutely not go out and get a dog, cat, or anything like that, because they're very expensive to care for. And so the result is shelters like the Humane Society and Animal Services, we are seeing very high levels of unwanted animals in our facilities. So as a matter of fact, right now we have 34 dogs at Animal Services, and our comfort capacity is around 20, right? And the numbers that we're seeing are sustained. In other words, they're just not going down. And then unfortunately, almost every single dog that comes into Animal Services is not spayed or neutered, it's not licensed, has no vaccinations, has nothing done on it. And so it's incredibly expensive to own a dog or cat, and people really need to think long and hard. Do you have the financial ability to properly care for yourself? Do you have the financial ability to care for the added expenses of a dog or cat? A good bag of dog food starts at $60 a bag. Taking your dog to the vet once a year, the vaccines, the heartworm prevention, proactive veterinarian care could be, $300 to $600 a year. But if something happens to your dog eats something, gets sick, gets hit by a car, it could be in the thousands and thousands to care for that dog through a veterinarian. Training, very important. People train their dogs. That can be hundreds and hundreds of dollars a year. So the expenses are there. At the end of the day, it's important people really think long and hard before they add a dog or cat to their home, because what's happening is shelters and rescues in Manitoba are just struggling and they're overwhelmed. And so we need more people to be spaying and neutering their pets, licensing their pets, and really not getting a pet until you can properly care for one.
Yeah, I was going to ask, I was reading some of the notes some of the owners left. One of them says the owner is homeless, and then the other one says that they have to work out of town, and it's a last resort for them to drop off their animals. What do you make of people who are in those positions?
Well, I would say if you're in a position where you have a pet and you can no longer care for it, you need to talk to your friends, family, coworkers, Facebook community groups. Do absolutely everything you can before you consider bringing your dog or cat to an animal shelter or a rescue. You think there's a lot of people who've really gone out the last few years and gotten pets and just not thought about if they can properly financially care for those pets, if they have that stable home. If you go out and get a dog or cat, you better be prepared to care for that dog and cat for its entire life, right? If you move somewhere, if you're considering moving, you're going to need to either, if you're moving to an apartment, move to an apartment that allows pets, right? And there's some of them, and there's some facilities that do, there's some facilities that don't. But, over the years, and this has been going on for decades, we'll have people say, I need to get rid of my dog because I'm moving to an apartment that doesn't allow pets, right? And, these animals, I think there's some people in our society that have thought these animals are disposable things, right? And so it frustrates staff and volunteers at shelters. It also frustrates us when we see so many people in Manitoba who are not spaying and neutering their pets. And when we talk to them about spaying and neutering, even though the city of Winnipeg, through pet licensing, we help fund low-income spay-neuter programming through the Humane Society. We give hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for low-income spaying and neutering through our friends at the Humane Society. But even with those resources available, there's a segment of our society that just doesn't want to spay and neuter their pets. They think it's mean. We hear people say at our front counter, I would never do that to myself. I'm not going to do it to my dog or cat, right? And spaying and neutering is not just about pet overpopulation. It's also about reducing aggression in pets. It's also about improving the health, where it reduces some cancers as these pets get older, and it prevents roaming, and it prevents all these other things. So talk to your veterinarian if you want to learn more about spaying and neutering. But, when you have a province like Manitoba that has such a critical overpopulation problem, both in Winnipeg and in northern Manitoba, and we have rescues that are struggling and they're trying to export dogs to other provinces because there's so much overpopulation here, we all need to look back at ourselves and go, why is there such an overpopulation problem of dogs and cats in Manitoba compared to other provinces? And what can we do about it? And so we have these spay and neuter programs in place. We have rescues going up north and doing spay and neuter programs. So we need more jurisdictions to have mandatory spay and neuters, or something like mandatory spay and neuters, especially for people who are irresponsible pet owners in regard to their pets. And I think over time, if we had more spaying and neutering, you're going to see this pet overpopulation crisis start to go down, but it's sure not happening right now when you have this many animals dropped off at once. The Humane Society has lots of animals being dropped off regularly. They take mostly owner-surrendered animals. They take seized animals occasionally. They take the occasional stray animals. And so we just need to work together.
CBC's Gavin Axelrod hearing from Winnipeg Animal Services General Manager Leland Gordon. If you want to read more in this story, please go to our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
In 2007, TV network CBS dropped 40 kids in the middle of the New Mexico desert as part of a brand new reality show. And if this sounds like Lord of the Flies to you, it was meant to.
We were going to prove to the world that we could make a better society than adults could.
I'm Josh Gwynn, and I want to know what this wild TV experiment was really about. Split Screen, Kid Nation, a 6-part podcast from CBC, available now.
It is 6:22 a.m. and it is Monday, June the 10th, as the month gets established, I would say, almost mid-month. It's 9 degrees in Winnipeg this morning. It's mainly sunny, beautiful sun actually coming through the downtown buildings and just streaming down Portage Avenue where we are in our CBC studios. Thanks for being with us. We're on air till 8:37 a.m. If you need us on your morning commute, 788-3093. Well, speaking of the gorgeous sunshine, we are now officially heading into summer and we're seeing hotter temperatures all around the world. There's a story about it on World Report this morning, in fact. Heat waves are also putting more vulnerable communities at higher risks. Now, planners, as you know, are exploring ways to better design our cities and towns to help people cope. Blair Feltmate is head of the Intact Centre on Climate Adaptation and the Faculty of Environment at the University of Waterloo, and with us this morning to look at this. Good morning.
Good morning.
So we've had a number of different interviews on this recently. Right now, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on what the key expert warnings are, the ones we've heard this month about the growing heat globally.
Well, people need to understand, and this is backed up, by the way, by Environment and Climate Change Canada, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the United Nations Environmental Program. In other words, a lot of authoritative agencies who know what they're talking about on this file. They've all concluded that climate change is irreversible, period. We're not going backwards on climate change. We can slow it down, but we're not going to reverse it. And extreme weather is going to get more extreme going forward, and that includes heat. It's going to get much hotter on the planet in the future. And for many people, that might be a bit disconcerting given the fact that we're breaking temperature records already. Well, we're going to continue to break those temperature records because more heat is on its way.
What should cities be doing?
Well, there's things they can control for something called the heat island effect. Urban areas or cities that tend to be, asphalt surfaces without a lot of shrubbery or trees, they tend to be about 3 to 5 degrees Celsius warmer than the surrounding countryside. But there's things you can do to lower what's called the heat island effect. For example, if you fly into almost any city, you look down from the plane at the rooftops of factories and apartment buildings and that sort of thing, almost always you see that roofs are dark, the dark surface of tar. Simply by painting the roofs of these cities white, that reflects a lot more of the sunlight, the energy of sunlight back up into space that will occur when sunlight hits a bright surface, as opposed to what it hits now, the dark surface, which absorbs the heat and makes the cities hotter. You can have cooler pavements that are brighter in surface as we build new pavements going forward that reflect sunlight back up into space rather than staying in the system. We need more shade areas, more tree canopies within cities to first of all give people respite, a place to go to get out of the way of the sun's rays. And then in apartment buildings, condo towers, and or around houses, we need more effort dedicated towards what's called passive cooling. In other words, more awnings over windows to keep sunlight from entering into buildings, mechanical shutters that can be pulled closed to keep the sunlight out, glazing on windows of buildings to keep the sunlight out, roof vents to let hot air that rises escape out of buildings. That's all called passive cooling. And in addition to that, we need to make sure that virtually everybody has access to at least one cool room in their home with a small window air conditioner, or in the summer it's called a heat pump, but same thing, it's an air conditioner. Mm-hmm. They need at least one place to escape to cool down when these extreme heat events hit.
What's the role of fossil fuels, oil and gas production and consumption? And I guess specifically, what did oil executives say last week on Parliament Hill, because they appeared before the Environment Committee?
Well, right now, just on a global level, and that's what climate change responds to, is our global actions. Right now, on a global scale, about 79% of world energy production comes from about a third each of coal, oil, and natural gas. That's where we get our energy on the planet right now. These are all fossil fuels that when they're burnt, they put CO2 or carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which traps heat that otherwise would escape into space. It stays in the atmosphere, and or that heat stays in the atmosphere, causing warming, and we get more extreme weather due to that. So that's the role of fossil fuels. Executives from the fossil fuel industry in the last week or two in Ottawa said that, amongst other points, that they are happy to pay a carbon tax and an escalating carbon tax, but they want certainty around the pricing so that they can build their businesses and business models around certainty on carbon pricing. So that's fair enough. And that also they will dedicate an increasing proportion of the revenue that's generated through the burning of fossil fuels to develop carbon capture and sequestration technology. In other words, a technology to suck carbon out of the atmosphere and store it safely in a place that's not contributing to climate change, which kind of sounds like a circular argument, but that's the argument they were making.
Before you go this morning, if Canadians are considering where to relocate, if they're wanting to avoid extreme heat, this is an extreme question, but I mean, are they moving to St. John's or Winnipeg or what?
Well, the three areas of Canada that are going to get the hottest going forward, so you might want to think twice if you're ever thinking about moving to these areas. It's the south central area of British Columbia and the valley regions along the U.S. border. That's going to become really hot. In the prairies, the southern region of the prairies along the U.S. border is going to be very hot going forward.
Sorry, Emerson. Okay.
Yep, and then the north shore of Lake Erie out through the St. Lawrence River Valley is going to become disproportionately hot going forward.
And the coolest going forward, just while we have 30 seconds here?
St. John's. If you want to be cool, go to St. John's, Newfoundland.
You want to be beside the water. Thank you very much for this morning. Appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you for having me.
That's Blair Feltmate. He heads the Intact Centre on Climate Adaptation at the Faculty of Environment at the University of Waterloo. We reached him this morning, by the way, in Oakville. We are in Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. Thanks for being with us. In the city this morning, it's 9 degrees. It's sunny. Today's high is going to be 23 degrees and increasing cloud this afternoon. With a check on the commute, Chloe Friesen's in. Hello.
Hello. Nothing to mention at the moment, but it is kind of construction season. New things are popping up all the time. So if something has surprised you, if something is new on your commute, a new piece of construction, I would love to know where that is so I can share that information with your fellow commuter. Or maybe it's just something that's been in your way for the last couple of weeks already. You can give us a call on our commuter line at 204-788-3093.
All right. Thank you, Chloe. Well, coming up after the news at 6:30, we have business news with Crystalie Ramlakan specifically, and we're looking at the federal government and its proposed changes to cannabis regulation. So that's coming up after the news. Also this morning, Apple is expected to announce some big changes today. So we're going to dig more into exactly what those are today. I know we've previously looked at them sort of in the broad strokes, but we'll see what detail we can get from today. So that is all still ahead on the program. As Chloe mentioned, if you need us on the commute, 788-3093, and your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is clear, 9 degrees, a beautiful start to the day. It's going to be sunny for the morning. We're headed to a high of 23. Then clouds roll in this afternoon, bringing with them some showers this evening. 8 healthcare aides have come together to speak out about work conditions at Holy Family Home. They say repeated instances of understaffing at the nonprofit personal care home in the North End are putting residents and employees at risk of physical and mental harm. Edda Pangilinan is CEO and founder of the Healthcare Aid Association of Manitoba. She says the aides came to her for help because they're afraid to go to their bosses. The aides say management has issued official complaints against them for incidents they say were caused by understaffing.
What got my attention is that intimidation. They don't want to talk. They don't want to lose their job. I said, no, you cannot lose your job just because of that. If you speak up, let's go. And we'll speak up for your rights.
One of the aides who has worked at Holy Family for 24 years says she's on disability. She says she developed depression after facing nonstop pressure from multiple residents needing help all at the same time. Holy Family says employees with concerns should speak with a member of the leadership team or their union representative. The aides union, CUPE, says it has filed 2 grievances on their behalf. The province has appointed a former Winnipeg detective to lead its police complaints agency. Harman Wuda is the new commissioner of Manitoba's Law Enforcement Review Agency. Manitoba is one of the few provinces with a former officer at the helm of its body that oversees complaints against municipal police. Ian Scott is the former head of Ontario's Special Investigations Unit. He says any police oversight agency should not be led by a former police officer.
Oversight is all about public confidence. And the way to facilitate public confidence is to have a civilian leader to ensure that there's really no conflict involved.
Justice Minister Matt Wiebe says he listened to the advice of a hiring committee and believes Wuda will bring impartiality to the role. The trial of Jeremy Skibitsky is expected to hear from an expert who assessed the mental state of the admitted Winnipeg serial killer. Skibitsky has pleaded not guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder in the 2022 deaths of Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, Rebecca Contois, and an unidentified woman given the name Mushkode Bishake Ikwe Iban. Skibitsky's lawyers say while he has admitted to killing the women, they plan to argue he is not criminally responsible because of a mental disorder. The trial, which resumes today, is expected to wrap later this week. A CBC investigation has uncovered details of a study carried out 10 years ago in Saskatchewan by an American scientist. The study involved experiments carried out on Indigenous children, and critics question why it was sanctioned. You can hear more on this story coming up on World Report at 7. Calls this morning for people not to abandon their pets. It comes after 10 unwanted animals were found at the door to the Winnipeg Humane Society over the weekend. General Manager of Winnipeg's Animal Services, Leland Gordon, says people should exhaust all options before just surrendering their pets.
There's so many people who just want to get rid of their pets, right? That many of these people are just in a situation where they're not in a position to care for their dog or cat anymore. So it's not a good situation that we have here in Winnipeg and in Manitoba. So before people get in that scenario, right, think hard before you add a pet to your home.
The Humane Society says a dog was found tied to a tree outside their location. There is also a note on a box of 6 rats and a mother cat with 2 kittens. Young Indigenous people from Manitoba have returned from a trip to help others and themselves. The trip to the Dominican Republic was part of a charity initiative that builds homes in the Caribbean country. Sheila North is a board member of the nonprofit Live Different and former MKO Grand Chief.
I wanted our young people from the North especially, but Indigenous youth to experience what it's like to go to another country. Being there down in the Dominican Republic was about helping them build their own futures with confidence and thinking globally and giving back.
The teens raised $3,000 each to build this house. North hopes the experience inspires young people to keep building for the future. You can find more news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Hey, Heather, you want to go on an instant vacation?
Sure.
Come on into the studio. Kick your feet up with your sandals. Inevitably, you're wearing sandals today, I'm guessing.
I'm not, but you know what? I know what you're going to say because in this booth where I am, it is like I'm on the equator.
What do you got? Do you have a thermostat in there to tell you?
26.
I got 26.4. Same thing. Woo! How are you handling it?
You know what? I'm not liking it.
You love it. I knew it. People watching us on YouTube this morning, I'm sure by 8 o'clock you're going to start to see a little bead of sweat coming down my forehead. I already made the makeshift fan. It's famous on InfoRad. Yeah, I used to use it for hot flashes. Now I use it when we're changing our heating system over.
Yes.
That's what's going on here. So maybe you got the same thing. But you know what? We should not be complaining about any kind of heat after the start that we've had to this spring. Things were beautiful yesterday. Once the morning cleared out, and Saturday, just a gorgeous day weather-wise here in Winnipeg. To find out what's happening across Manitoba now, let's go to our regional forecast with Abby Adiyemi.
Good morning once again, Marcy. Clear in Winnipeg, sunny outside, 9 degrees. It's promising to be a lovely day. Sunshine will dominate, and then the temperatures will be climbing to a comfortable 23 degrees later. However, we should be expecting some clouds to roll in later, and by tonight we should see some rain showers bringing up to 5 to 10 millimeters of rainfall. Also, keep an eye out for breezy conditions overnight. As we head to Brandon right now, where it's 8 degrees and partly cloudy, the rain is expected later in the day. There's also a chance of thunderstorm later, and we'll be seeing that in that part of Brandon. For Thompson, it's currently 1 and mainly sunny. Conditions for today will be sunny, and we will see a high of 20. Further north in Churchill, where it's 8 degrees and partly cloudy, expect mainly sunny skies. We're heading for a high of 18 degrees today. Dauphin is at 4 degrees and clear at the moment, also seeing some sunny conditions. The rain is expected later this afternoon. Expect around 5 millimeters, and you see highs of 19. Gimli's at 7, clear and sunny also at the moment. The Interlake region today will be seeing lots of sunshine, and then some clouds will crawl in the afternoon, and the highs will be around 22. Steinbach is currently at 5 degrees, also sunny and clear. Today's forecast calls for mainly sunny skies, and then the clouds will roll in the afternoon period, and we'll see a high of 23. And finally, in Morris, where it's 6 degrees and also clear, we're seeing some sunshine in that part of the province also, and the forecast calls for sunny skies for the Pembina Valley region. Some clouds will roll in the afternoon, and will touch a high of 23. Winnipeg is at 9 degrees, clear and sunny. We're expecting temperatures to climb to a high of 23.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
The commute's been fine. So far, so good, so early. 788-3093 is where you can reach Chloe Friesen if you have any problems. Well, coming up in this half hour, right before 7 o'clock, we're going to have a conversation about eating disorders among youth, which you may know have been surging since the pandemic. Now, the Canadian Pediatric Society is urging primary care doctors to screen all teenage patients for an eating disorder. So they've put it into their recommendations. We're going to hear more about that this half hour on the show. Right now, though, it's time for business news. Christelle Ramlakan joins us via Zoom. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So the federal government is proposing changes to cannabis regulations. What do we understand about those?
Yeah, well, these changes range from everything from packaging to reporting requirements, and it's in an effort to reduce regulatory burden. So Health Canada says the changes could save $41 million a year in administrative and compliance costs. Now, the government says some things can be more efficient without compromising public health and safety. So proposed changes include allowing for lids and containers to be different colors, cutout windows or transparent packaging so consumers can see the product before buying, and QR codes so buyers can find more information. Producers would also be able to bundle multiple products together as long as the package is still under that 30-gram limit. And easing of the rules would also mean producers no longer have to provide paper copies of information sheets to retailers or submit a notice to government on every new dried or fresh product they want to sell. And the sale of cannabis pollen would also be allowed. So producers also wouldn't need to report on promotional efforts every year or cultivation waste. And, this comes as the cannabis industry is facing a number of challenges, including bankruptcies and market consolidation. And Marcy, a group put together by the federal government earlier this year made 54 recommendations, including also a review of taxes charged to pot producers.
Well, speaking of changes, let's go to another story because Apple is also expected to announce some big ones today, right?
Yes, so Apple is expected to announce new artificial intelligence features at its annual Worldwide Developer Conference today. And it could bring the company back into competition with much of the rest of the tech world, which has already deeply invested in AI. So some analysts say the tech giant hasn't really given users a significant reason to upgrade their phones in about 4 years since it rolled out 5G technology with the iPhone 12. And it's a worrying trend for the company's core business. The iPhone brought in more than half of the company's total revenue last year, but sales growth has been lagging as people have been slower to upgrade. Now, many companies have been facing a similar situation, but it's been even more painful for Apple as it faces more competition in China and a landmark antitrust lawsuit. But as I was saying, this could all change today. New AI features could encourage people to upgrade when Apple rolls out the iPhone 16 in the fall. But, no matter how things go today, Apple really isn't losing its status as a tech powerhouse anytime soon. The company earned more than $200 billion from its iPhone sales last year, and its stock is up 9% over the past year. But analysts say reinvigorating iPhone sales is key to Apple's continued growth.
iPhone 16, man. Wow.
I know. I can't believe it.
Yeah. And finally, before we look at the numbers this morning, why is gold struggling?
Well, new deposits are becoming harder to find as many prospective areas have already been explored. The World Gold Council says mine production was up only 0.5% last year compared to the year before. And after 10 years of rapid growth, production is plateauing. So large-scale gold mining is expensive. It takes 10 to 20 years before a mine is even ready for production. And even during the exploration process, the likelihood of a discovery progressing into the development of a mine is low, with only about 10% of discoveries containing sufficient metal to even warrant mining. Government permits are getting harder to secure, and many projects are in remote areas that require infrastructure such as roads and power, so that's making it more difficult to finance. And Marcy, gold prices are taking a breather after rallying to record highs in recent months, and that was bolstered by strong demand led by China.
What's up in the numbers this Monday morning, Crystal? What do you know?
So in Europe, stocks are falling as traders react to initial results from the EU Parliament elections and the surprise call for parliamentary elections from the French president. Germany, the UK, and France are all down. In Asia, markets are mixed after a stronger than expected U.S. jobs report on Friday. So Japan is up, Shanghai is up, Hong Kong is down. Oil is up 23 cents to 75.76 U.S. per barrel. Gold is down $7.10 to $2,317.90 U.S. per ounce, and the dollar is down 0.03 of a cent to 72.63 cents U.S.
All right, have a good rest of your Monday. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.
Thanks, Marcy. You too.
By Zoom, live with us every morning. That's Crystal Lee Ramlichan with Business News. Well, Crystal Lee was just talking about Apple launching its new product today involving AI. Artificial intelligence really right now is everywhere, from healthcare to the arts. But its presence in the classroom specifically is still a contentious issue. In Sherwood Park, Alberta, though, not so much. This morning, a look inside one classroom there about how high school teachers and students are using AI.
Hello, my name is David Hay. I am a computing science and robotics teacher here at BevFC Community High School in Sherwood Park. We have a lot of different things going on in our computers classes here. We have students building video games in various game engines like Unreal. We have students building and programming robots, building and programming computers. Also, we use artificial intelligence when we're writing code using sort of Copilot tools to help with the process, the other large language models just to help with the initial drafting or with debugging or anything like that. They also will train AI models to do object recognition or to do semantic analysis of texts or other things like that, where they're actually training AI models, not just using pre-trained ones.
Hi, I'm Matt Adam, and I'm in grade 12 here at Bev Facey. I think that AI in schools, classroom settings, it's like not learning the internet in the 90s. We need it. In the past, I've had Spanish assignments where I have to write about, right now we're doing a film director, so where were they from, how does their work go into a certain movie, and instead of just going to the internet and scrolling through all these lists of things because it wasn't a well-known director, I went on to ChatGPT and I'm like, where is this person from? Give me sources. What is their connection to this film? And it gave me a whole list of resources and it gave me an answer as well. AI is going to change how we think. It's going to change the future. We either need to learn it, accept it, and understand how to use it properly, than not understand it at all and let it kind of do its own thing with the people that do know.
When I was a student, I learned keyboarding on a typewriter, a physical typewriter. And when I started teaching, I was still using a chalkboard, and then whiteboards came out, and then digital interactive boards and all of these sorts of tools. So there's always been a change in technologies. And in fact, my dad talks about when ballpoint pens were the new technology introduced when he was in elementary school, and the teachers were not always in favor of ballpoint pens because they were worried that it would negatively impact student writing. And so this is just I think a larger version of that this is going to have a profound impact and is already having a profound impact on so much of what we do in education.
Hi, Alex Dye, and I'm in grade 10. If I'm writing code, for example, in computer science class, and I just can't figure it out, AI can really help me explain what the code is about and how to solve it. Before, if you were stuck on a problem, you'd have to email your teacher or find a website and wait 2 hours for a reply. But now you can just get an instant explanation. I've used ChatGPT to plan for example, if my parents are oh, we're going on vacation, it can help me plan travel guide or something like that. We're actually going to California at the end of this year today, and I think it's a 6-day trip, and I asked ChatGPT, how can we go on this trip and visit these universities I want to visit? And it just gives me the whole plan. Day 1, you start in San Francisco, and then you can drive down the scenic highway. On day 2, you stay a night there, and then on day 4, you get to Los Angeles, and then it suggests some places to visit.
I certainly will never mandate the use of artificial intelligence, but I introduce students to how I use it in my own workflow for the coding and the things that I create myself. And I give them examples of how it can be used. And we talk a lot about the appropriate uses of it, that when it's their work, they need to be maintaining authorship of it, that it can't just be a copy and paste. In the same way that we don't copy and paste from Wikipedia, we don't just copy and paste from the large language models and hand that in as if it's our own work. I don't believe that it's possible to create tools that are good AI detectors. The best way to check if students are being honest about their academics is to have conversations with them, to walk through the process with them, to look at intermediate steps and not just the final product.
A Monday morning look at some changing classrooms. That one's in Sherwood Park, Alberta, in a high school where the students there are using AI. Thanks to CBC's Liam Harrop for bringing us that story.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world. Staying on top of stories around the globe. And connected close to home. It's news you can trust. Delivered when you want and where you want. On Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1. Local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
Time right now is 11 minutes to 7 o'clock. Nice sunshine in downtown Winnipeg this morning. Kind of a mixed bag. Yesterday morning was out and out cold when the wind was blowing. Even rained a little bit early as we were out yesterday early. But then it cleared up and some nice sunshine by the end of the day. We're starting the day much calmer here. Winds are northeast at just 4, 9 degrees in Winnipeg with the sun. Brandon, you are mostly cloudy. It's 8 degrees for you. You are expecting rain to begin late this afternoon. And in Winnipeg, our rain will come likely this evening, but mostly cloudy to start in Brandon. It's 8 degrees. Thompson's mainly sunny as well. It's 2 degrees for you in Thompson this morning, and your sunny day daytime high is going to be 20 degrees. Here in Winnipeg, by the way, we're going to hit a high of 23 is what we're forecasting. Well, the Canadian Pediatric Society has introduced new guidelines on eating disorders. They want primary care doctors to screen all adolescents during routine visits. With a major surge in eating disorder cases since the pandemic, it's meant to catch cases earlier. To talk about it, Nikita Singles joins us now. She's a child and adolescent psychiatry resident at the University of Toronto. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what specifically is the Canadian Pediatric Society recommending here?
So their new guidelines are excellent, really pleased to see them. And so what they're recommending first and foremost is that all adolescents should be screened for eating disorders as part of any routine health visit. And then they also go on to kind of talk about different screening questionnaires that can be used, as well as how to really begin working with young people and their families in the community setting until they can access more specialized treatment if they are struggling with an eating disorder.
I just right out the gate want to ask you something because I've done quite a few stories on this and help with a conference on eating disorders here. And one of the things that came up right away was that an eating disorder is really, it's a mental health disorder in many ways, but not a lot of physicians and doctors understand how to treat eating disorders. So does training go along with this? Is there a worry that all docs are being recommended to have these conversations, but they're not trained to have these conversations?
That's an excellent question. So unfortunately, we don't have a lot of training, even in psychiatry on eating disorders, let alone in family medicine, where they're learning about basically all kind of health conditions. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's really key, though, asking about it and then being able to say, we'll get the ball rolling to get you referred to more specialized treatment, and knowing some of the key things in, just taking really an open approach, non-judgmental, and being supportive. The benefits of, early screening and early catching it and then intervening earlier outweigh, the challenges of, maybe not feeling totally prepared to deal with it. But again, having guidelines like these that can really help feel more comfortable to at least monitor things until more specialized care can be accessed.
Mm-hmm. Can you give us, meantime, an example of specific screening questions or methods for detecting eating disorders among youth?
Yeah, so the new guidelines, they include a few examples of screening questionnaires. So there's one that's called kind of the SCOFF questionnaire that's out of the UK. There's another one that's really simple. It's the eating disorder screen for primary care. And it's really asking about, are you satisfied with your eating patterns? Do you ever eat in secret? Does your weight affect the way you feel about yourself? And also asking about kind of a family history of an eating disorder, and outright asking a young person, do you currently have or have you ever had an eating disorder? And it's really simple. And then having kind of a yes or positive screen would then prompt you to go further into exploring this.
What are the signs that primary caregivers can look for in younger patients and to sort of screen for this ahead of time?
Yeah, so I think beyond what people might typically think of in terms of, weight loss or suddenly like a very kind of dramatic shift in someone's appearance, I think being on the lookout for body image concerns, or if they're seeming more critical of themselves or making comments like that, if there is, a change in their relationship with food or eating patterns, if you're noticing maybe more physical activity or a different relationship with exercise. And also it might affect, menstruation, or even more vague kind of like comments about pain or abdominal pain and things like that can kind of set off a bit of a signal for folks.
What populations are you concerned might be missed in the conversation?
I think, again, a really excellent question. So we often will think of eating disorders as primarily affecting older youth as well, people who may be from a typical kind of more a higher socioeconomic status, or mainly affecting girls. And I think it's really important that we recognize that they can affect people of all racial and ethnic backgrounds, of all socioeconomic statuses, and also people of all genders, and those that don't necessarily look like they might have an eating disorder, whatever that means. They can affect people, again, all body shapes and sizes. It's really key to remember that.
Are there treatments and interventions that can be made available to patients by general practitioners now? Because that's the other concern here, is that you have the conversation, but then where do you go for treatment with, a lack of facilities all across the country, certainly in Manitoba, huge wait lists to get in. What happens if somebody does find a problem?
Yeah, so one of the key things is really just providing close monitoring and follow-up, checking in, not only about kind of their physical health and their weight and their nutrition, also their mental health, checking in how they're doing from that perspective, because as you noted, it is a mental health condition. And then these guidelines actually talk about some elements of family-based treatment, which is the more specialized program that people often be referred to. But primary care providers can incorporate some elements of that into the monitoring and the care that they're providing. And so they talk about helping parents, even from an educational standpoint, understanding the illness, maybe externalizing it a bit and seeing it as separate from their child. So it helps to not, get frustrated with, why don't you just eat, or why don't you just change your behavior? And then also helping them kind of take over maybe a bit of the feeding and setting some limits. So those are all things that, primary care providers can help families do as they await more specialized treatment.
Are we doing any better with battling the stigma around this mental health issue, given that after the pandemic, obviously it's made its way into the mainstream in a bigger way?
Yeah, I do think absolutely we have done a lot to fight the stigma. I think people are increasingly recognizing and aware that it is not a lifestyle choice or something, kind of to be treated lightly, and that it is a serious mental health condition that people don't choose to be afflicted with. I think there's more work to be done for sure around helping people understand, again, the diverse range of folks who may be affected, and also more advocacy to be done to increase our funding for research into innovative new treatments. Because even though we have family-based therapy, it doesn't work for many people. And so really fighting the stigma even more through guidelines like this and other efforts hopefully will help to address that.
Thank you very much for being with us this morning and talking us through it. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's Nikita Singal. She's a child and adolescent psychiatry resident at the University of Toronto. And if you're listening here in Manitoba and you want to weigh in, 788-3205. Heather Wells is here now with headlines.
The NDP government has hired a former Winnipeg detective to lead its police complaints agency. Harman Wuda is appointed as the new commissioner for Manitoba's Law Enforcement Review Agency. The former head of Ontario's Special Investigations Unit says the hire is bad for public confidence in the agency. Closing arguments are expected today at the Winnipeg trial of an admitted serial killer. Jeremy Skibitsky has pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder in the 2022 murders of 4 Indigenous women. His lawyers admit he killed the women, but say he should be found not criminally responsible because of mental illness. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 7:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Chloe, how's the drive?
Kenniston. There's a construction zone you might want to know about. Scurfield to Rothwell. Northbound lane closures are in effect for sewer work until June 21st. So expect delays there. Use alternate routes if possible. Again, Kenniston, Scurfield to Rothwell, your northbound lane, you're losing a lane for sewer work until June 21st. If there is another construction zone you think folks should be aware of, or anything else getting in your way, 204-788-3093.
All right, thank you, Chloe Friesen. Filling in for Corey this morning. 9 degrees, mainly sunny, a high of 23 for our Monday, June the 10th. And in the next hour of the show, we're going to be talking about anxiety. A rally for Action Anxiety Day is planned in our community today. It focuses on raising awareness, but also educating people about anxiety. We're going to hear from someone who advocates for people with anxiety about his work, but also about his own journey recognizing it. Because generationally, and I can speak as a 50-year-old Manitoban, back in the day, there wasn't a lot of discussion about recognizing and dealing with anxiety. So where are we at now? Also, we're going to meet a former Bison women's hockey player who's only 24 but has already made her mark on and off the ice in a major way. Today, we are beginning to unveil and meet our future 40 finalists at CBC Manitoba, and you can go to our website and read about them now, cbc.ca/Manitoba. And coming up as well, a full conversation before 8 with a Sandy Hook resident and a follow-up with the Lake Winnipeg Foundation. That resident says the amount of pollution that she saw coming up on shore and new types of garbage was shocking to her. She thinks it's coming from toilets in Winnipeg. Stay tuned. World Report's next.
On the current.
Canada's Evan Dunphy has won bronze in Tokyo 2020.
The Paris Olympics are coming up in just over a month, and Canadian race walker Evan Dunphy, one of the world's fastest walkers, is getting set for a long, fast walk. Evan Dunphy on what it means to win and lose, coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This morning, the euro is hovering around a 1-month low. More than 3/4 of UK stocks are in the red, and shares in French banks are sliding. The results are coming in for EU parliamentary elections, and in some of the bloc's largest countries, voters have moved right. Freelance reporter Rebecca Collard has more.
En notre démocratie.
Before the final results were even in, French President Emmanuel Macron announced a snap election. His party got just 15% of the vote, less than half of what Marine Le Pen's far-right National Rally Party received. I decided to give back to you the choice for the future of our parliament with a vote, Macron told a crowd. And so I am dissolving our National Assembly. That was welcomed by Le Pen. EU parliamentary elections are seen as a poll on national parties and domestic politics. And the message in Germany, France, and Austria is the far right is in and centrist parties are losing ground. The far-right Alternative for Germany is celebrating. It received almost 16% of the vote, trailing Germany's conservative Christian Democratic Union, but surpassing all the parties in Chancellor Scholz's ruling coalition. Centrist parties will maintain a majority in the EU Parliament, and current President Ursula von der Leyen is promising to fight for the idea of Europe.
The centre is holding. But the result comes with great responsibility for the parties in the centre.
There is a clear shift to the right in Europe, and that shift is being fueled by youth and nationalist politics. Rebecca Collard for CBC News, Berlin.
A CBC investigation is revealing what happened 10 years ago when an American brainwave scientist conducted an experiment on Indigenous children from Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. Critics say the experiment was weird, and they say the university that approved it made a serious mistake. The CBC's Jeff Leo has the exclusive story.
This is the sound that brainwaves make during a neurofeedback session. American psychologist James Hart says listening to your own brainwaves can make you smarter, happier, and help you overcome trauma.
Change your brainwaves, change your identity, change your reality.
In 2014, he proposed a study focusing on Indigenous school children from Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. A call for participants went out, and 12-year-old China Galerno immediately told her mom.
It's like I was so excited, and I kept bugging her until she would agree to go.
On day one, technicians at Hart's Biocybernaut Institute stuck electrodes on their head and told them that they would spend hours inside darkened chambers listening to their own brainwaves. It was a shock for China's mum, Alma Stonestand.
We did not know about that until just when it started happening to us.
The study only happened after the University of Regina's Research Ethics Board approved it.
Clearly, a serious mistake was made.
That's Ian Mosby, a medical historian and expert on unethical experimentation on Indigenous people. He reviewed the ethics application and was stunned to see that it didn't clearly spell out what the researchers planned to do to the children. The University of Regina explained to CBC that it only reviewed a small part of the study, not the whole thing. A spokesperson says the university is sorry for any harm that may have been done, noting it has since tightened its review process. For her part, China wishes she'd never been involved. Jeff Leo, CBC News, Regina.
You can read Jeff Leo's full story on cbcnews.ca and hear much more about it later in the morning on CBC Radio's The Current and tonight on The National. The federal Liberals say they are ready to get the ball rolling on increasing the capital gains tax. Here is Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland.
We could choose to give the greatest tax advantages to those who are already the most well off. Or we could ask every Canadian to pay their fair share. In Canada, we believe in fairness.
The government is expected to table a Ways and Means motion in the House of Commons later today. That is the first step before proposing new tax legislation. Right now, only 50% of capital gains are taxable. The government wants to raise that to 66% on capital gains above $250,000. Freeland says the tax hike is necessary for Canada to pay for things like housing and health care. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi officially begins his third term today. Modi is greeted by staff in India's parliament. He was sworn in over the weekend, but his party did not receive the level of support in the election it was expecting. That means Modi had to rely on other parties to form a majority coalition. Many critics say the 6-week-long elections were anything but democratic. The federal gun case against Hunter Biden is heading into its final stretch today. His lawyers will have a chance to call at least one more witness before they rest their case. Many are watching to see if the U.S. president's son will take the stand in his own defense. Biden is accused of illegally purchasing and owning a firearm in 2018. Prosecutors allege the 54-year-old lied about his drug use when he purchased the gun. Biden has pleaded not guilty to the charges. The people in the United States are under heat alerts and warnings. A heat wave is lingering in the Southwest. Forecasts suggest that many states could see record-breaking temperatures again this week. Freelance reporter Steve Futterman has more.
The western U.S. heat wave goes on. It may have cooled the past few days, but only a bit. And in places like Las Vegas and Phoenix, no one seems to notice.
The last 3 days was brutal.
That man lives in Phoenix, where yesterday it was 40 degrees. That's down from 45 degrees last week. But tomorrow the forecast calls for temperatures to begin moving up again, and it can be dangerous.
At first, you start to feel kind of tired, and then you're sweating, and then eventually, you kind of start feeling a little, sometimes queasy.
Millions are living in areas under extreme heat warnings and are being urged to remain indoors. That didn't stop Donald Trump yesterday from campaigning in Las Vegas.
Not too hot out here, right? It's not bad.
And his appearance took place outdoors.
And if anybody goes down, if you start going down, we have people, they'll pick you up right away. They'll throw water.
Around 24 people had to be treated. Several were sent to nearby hospitals. Most people, though, are trying to stay indoors. Air conditioner use is putting a strain on power grids. But if you need to go outside, this may be your best choice. This water pod park in Las Vegas yesterday was full of kids and adults happy to get wet. It's going to be another very hot week. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Los Angeles.
Eating a more sustainable diet could be helping more than the planet. A new study compared the diets of tens of thousands of people. It found a strong link between eating sustainable foods and a lower risk of death. Anand Ram takes us through the study.
For Dr. Annie Lalonde, a surgery resident at Vancouver General Hospital, food is healing, but
we spend a lot of energy, labor, time, resources, love into making food that ultimately patients don't eat.
That's why she helped develop a hospital menu that isn't just more appealing for patients, it's more sustainable for the planet.
A Thai-inspired peanut rice noodle bowl, a coconut chickpea curry with a mango chutney.
Foods like that, with more plant-based proteins over more carbon-intensive meat, are part of new Harvard research linking sustainable eating to a lower risk of death. Walter Willett is a physician and co-author of the study.
It was every major cause of mortality was lower. Heart disease, cancer, neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's disease.
Specifically, he looked at the planetary health diet, which he helped develop in 2019. He found the risk of death lower in study participants who ate more nuts, legumes, whole grains, and unsaturated fats like olive oil.
Canada's food guide is largely coherent and consistent with a sustainable dietary pattern.
Benoit Lamarche, scientific director at Laval University's Nutrice Center, says Canada's guidelines are similar, but he warns that diets need to consider more than just health.
So it needs to be affordable, and also it has to be culturally acceptable.
Dal and rice can save the day.
For chef and activist Joshna Maharaj, the new research shows the value of traditional food wisdom.
We did not start out as humans in a way that was oppressive. We actually built food systems that worked well and that were in harmony with the earth.
Evidence that what's good for the planet may be good for us too. Anand Ram, CBC News, Toronto.
Anand has more on this story at cbcnews.ca. Click climate for the details. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, look at that sunshine, everyone. A continuation of yesterday's beautiful day. We are live in downtown Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. gorgeous. If you are on YouTube, you see a beautiful photo of our downtown this morning. Well, this hour on the program, we're actually taking you out to Lake Country. The executive director of the Lake Winnipeg Foundation says if you were concerned about the February sewage spill in South Winnipeg, it's not over.
That spill at Abinogi-Mackinac is ongoing. There are notifications every couple of days of 5 megaliters released, 2 megaliters released. Every time that there's a storm, the capacity there isn't sufficient to keep the sewage out of the river. It keeps on being discharged, and I think it's quite possible that what Linda saw was actually not the February spill, but a May spill.
Linda is Linda Moe. She lives in Sandy Hook. We'll have this story this hour. We're going to hear what washed up on shore during her morning walk on Lake Winnipeg. She says she was shocked to see it. In addition, I want to mention that straight ahead in a few minutes here, we're going to have a conversation about Action Anxiety Day, focused on raising awareness and action and educating people about anxiety. So that's happening today in Winnipeg, and we're going to talk to someone who advocates for people with anxiety about his work and about his own journey as well. Right now, Heather Wells is in to update other stories. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, 8 healthcare aides have come together to speak out about work conditions at Holy Family Home. They say repeated instances of understaffing at the nonprofit personal care home in Winnipeg's North End are putting residents and employees at risk of physical and mental harm. We'll hear more. As well, a hero's welcome for young Indigenous volunteers at Richardson International yesterday as the teens returned from the Dominican Republic. They went there to help build a house for charity. Organizers say the goal was also to inspire them to build for the future. I'll be back with more Manitoba News at 7:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Let's go to, why don't we go to traffic first? Because I think it's been quiet, unless you're going to break the street, Chloe Friesen.
Oh, no, I don't have plans to. Yeah, no. Still quiet, but there are a few spots of construction that might be slowing you down this morning. We're looking at Kenaston from Scurfield to Rothwell. You're losing a lane heading northbound due to sewer work. That's until June 21st, so expect some delays if that's part of your commute as well. Southbound Arlington is closed between Lansdowne and Polson until November, so that's a bit longer than the first one. That's part of
no
the
one's
Inkster.
going to remember that.
No, not really.
November,
it's part of the Inkster Boulevard construction. So Arlington, southbound between Lansdowne and Polson is closed. If there is anything else getting in your way on your commute, if you want to break the streak, you can give us a call, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Chloe. Abby Adiemi.
I guess just to add to your commute, you can open the sunroof at this point.
Yeah,
so
it would be nice this morning, actually.
Just enjoy. We got lots of sunshine at the moment. It's clear. That's what's dominating the scene at the moment. We can expect plenty of sunshine today with clouds gradually rolling in as the day progresses. But right now, we are at 11 degrees. Highs for today will be reaching a pleasant 23 degrees. But don't forget to grab the sunglasses because it's really bright out there. Tonight, the skies will turn cloudy and then we'll be seeing rain showers making an appearance later in the evening. And we're looking at rainfall between 5 to 10 millimeters. So brace yourself for some breeze that will be coming with that as the winds will be shifting from the south with gusts up to 50 kilometers. And overnight lows will settle at around 14 degrees. And if we look into tomorrow, it's also promising to be a mixed bag of weather with a chance of lingering showers tapering off by noon tomorrow. But in Winnipeg at the moment, it's 11 degrees, clear sky, sunny out there, and some clouds will roll in later, and we will get to a high of 23.
Well, up first this half hour on CBC, you may notice around town today some people wearing blue and orange. That is because today is Action Anxiety Day. It is a national day. It's created to bring awareness and education to people about anxiety. Anxiety Disorders Association of Manitoba, or ADAM, is hoping people will join the rally they're having later. Also, have fun with this. And that is how people open up often. Just talk about your own experience with anxiety and normalize it all. Scott McFadden is Executive Director of ADAM and is in studio with us this morning. Hi there.
Hi, Marcy. Thanks for having me here.
Thanks for being with us this morning. So, speaking of opening up and sharing your own stories, you are not only organizing all of this, but you have your own personal story. When did you realize you were living with anxiety, Scott?
Well, the Anxiety Disorders Association of Manitoba is it's a peer support organization. So everyone who works at anxiety disorders has walked a mile, in the shoes of someone managing anxiety. And your question was, when did I realize? I think I've kind of always known. I've always had carried a demon, within me. But it was closer to my 50th year on the planet that I decided to take action. And the 100 years of experience we have at the table here today is, it really did kind of get to a point in my life where I needed to take action.
Now, you're referring to the fact that you're 50, I'm 50 as well, so we're all chatting about this, but this is significant generationally because people who may be middle-aged now would not have grown up with the same kind of anxiety awareness that thankfully the next and next generations will have. So did you recognize it, or what did it take for you to sort of understand that, oh, this is something maybe I can manage? And how did you manage it?
Well, I don't think I managed very well throughout my life. And I do think we do come from a generation where, you didn't talk about mental health, but in the case of anxiety disorders, 1 in 4 Manitobans will manage an anxiety disorder in their lifetime. And the reasons why you have an anxiety disorder are not relevant or important. Genetic, it could be, some environmental reason. But that base of knowledge that, young people have now is it's okay to talk about how you're feeling. And I think, our generation, Marcy, is we were taught, that speaking about your feelings was a sign of weakness. And in fact, the exact opposite is the case. It's actually a sign of great strength and bravery.
And I would say, just as a mental health advocate here and being on the air for a while, people have heard me talk about this a lot, but I would say that I had the experience of a family that talked about it a lot, talked about mental health challenges a lot, which was a great thing, but didn't really know how to identify them or what to do with them. Like, what does that actually mean? And so I was late to acknowledging sort of some anxiety in my life as well. People around me acknowledged it before I even could. So what are the stigmas that are still around today surrounding anxiety as we try to open this up today, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, there's still some of those historical stigmas, weakness. You do see it. Particularly in certain sectors, that just haven't moved along with the rest of society. So, there's that perception there that maybe you won't get hired, you won't get the promotion. There's a number of reasons as to why you might keep those cards close to yourself. And that very well might be the case. And, my suggestion to anyone is it's well worth any of the negative stigma that's attached to anxiety just to get well. And to seek treatment options. And really at the end of the day, those people, maybe you won't get that promotion. These are things that are addressed in the law courts, in that you can't be discriminated against based on mental health. Reality is maybe there is a stigma still out there. But you're better off being healthy than worrying about what someone else thinks about you.
We've been talking about the generational differences, but I don't want this to get lost. I think that the highest proportions of people that are struggling with anxiety right now, especially out of the pandemic, are young people. Yeah. So what are the signs if you're worried about someone that you might take into account, or if for yourself that you might want to pay attention to?
Yeah, well, any sort of extended worry, anything that lasts longer than maybe what it should naturally last.
Which is so hard because when you have anxiety, you don't even know how long that is. I had a friend who said, you realize that other people don't actually carry worry like this on and on and on. So, but that's important, right? If you're ruminating.
Well, and in my own case, it wasn't a day, it wasn't 2 days, it wasn't a week. Wasn't even a month. It was years. Right?
Worrying about something.
Worrying about things. And it's that slow boil that it gets to the point where everyone around you might see that you're struggling and you don't. And so, but everyone's journey is totally different.
Absolutely.
Right? And treatments are totally different.
What treatment worked for you?
Well, there's, it's funny, before I started with this job you heard the term, I'm suffering from anxiety. I didn't suffer from anxiety. My family suffered from my anxiety. So it took a family member saying, hey, you need help. And so the first trip for me was to a GP and turn to a specialist. And, that took a little bit of time. I was prescribed medication. That medication didn't work. It was really hard.
Which is so hard because you work through this journey to get to the medication. Then if it doesn't work, you so what did you do after that?
I more medication, tried a different type of medication and talk therapy. And, what I would say is the medication is working. I'm stable in that my ups and downs aren't quite as radical as they were, in those 5 kind of dark periods, in my life.
What do you wish that somebody that would have done for you when you were struggling that wasn't done? And this isn't to put blame on your family. This is to educate all of us listening. I guess I should word it maybe, what do you wish people would know about it in hindsight?
Yeah, well, actually, it's what I wish I knew, to tell you the truth. Like, people are very, very skilled at masking, Marcy, you have to, you become comfortable being uncomfortable. It really, you're able to mask it, but it does manifest in negative ways, and you can't hide it from your family members.
Can you give me an example of a negative way that it would come out?
Yeah. So, hey, for all of Winnipeg to hear, I smoke, right? I'm a smoker. I do have, I'm constantly moving. I'm constantly doing things. And so, the silence is sometimes my enemy. And so I have to do something, because if I look inward, I have to do something.
Got it.
And so, for a lot of people, it manifests in alcoholism, increased drug use, just very self-destructive.
Finding other ways to cope.
Finding other ways to cope.
What does it feel like in your body? Did you have physical anxiety? It's so different for everybody.
Yeah.
Or was it more rumination, as you're describing, more like that constant worry, the ups and downs with the mood?
Yeah, physical manifestation.
Yeah.
So in my case, of course, sweaty palms and, just nerves, which incredibly, you can hide that. You can mask that.
I think people would be shocked.
Yeah, it'd be really shocked,
Yeah.
right? And having to go in front of a crowd and, 2 hours preparing yourself for that moment. And then you seem fine. And then you leave the stage and you're not fine. But it's, this is part of being a human in many ways too.
I want to save time for the event that I mentioned here today so people can take part if they can support, and they should understand what's going on. So there's a rally going on?
A rally, yes, from 4 to 6 p.m. At 4 Fort Street, so just behind the Hotel Fort Garry, across from the Upper Fort Garry.
Okay.
And we're asking people to wear orange and blue, and what we're doing is we're just getting loud about anxiety. So anxiety is nothing to be ashamed of. 1 in 4 Manitobans will manage an anxiety disorder in their lifetime. And this is doctors, lawyers, professional hockey players. Doesn't
Radio
matter.
hosts.
Yeah, radio hosts. Doesn't matter what your identity is, your sexual identity, all of that. And so really what we're doing in orange and blue, we live in Manitoba, NDP, conservative, and we're just wanting everyone to understand, doesn't matter where you come from, anxiety is a thing.
2 more things I want to ask you. One is about cultural awareness of anxiety, because of course everybody comes through a different lens. You were talking about families, you're talking about how it manifests differently. Is there more work that's needed to be done to get the resources to people that might be culturally specific, or even, frankly, even things that are translated into all multi-different languages that are represented in this province?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. We do have a translation project going on, so we're translating all of our material into about 10 languages. And so we're hoping to get that out there. But yeah, certainly language. But then there's also a cultural apprehension, I would say, of seeking services and, showing weakness.
It's a different stigma.
A different stigma.
Yeah. Now, before you go, I'm leaving you with this. Everybody see what I've got? I learned this actually from a younger person that came into my life, and they had grown up with a generation where they were able to identify anxiety, be treated for anxiety, and I thought, wow. So I was like, one day I was very, 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 I was struggling a lot, and this person noticed that and said, do you ever just stop and try to touch base with your senses? And they said, why don't you have a sour gummy to just reset? whatever's going on.
All
And
right.
I thought,
I'm in.
wow, where was this when I was 8 years old and I really needed it? So
Okay.
here
Yummy.
you go.
Yeah, thanks, Marcy.
I'm going to leave you.
Yeah.
Don't take the whole bag. 'Cause
Oh,
we might need
no,
it
I
later.
can't take the whole bag. Oh, okay.
But please take a few, and good luck
Okay.
with the rally. And thank you for coming in, Scott.
Thanks very much. 4 to 6 p.m. Come on down. You'll find us.
He couldn't resist.
I couldn't resist.
Couldn't resist. I like the nod to the Kernhill. Scott McFadden, Executive Director of Adam. So people will gather this afternoon. They're also asking you to use the hashtag #GotAnxiety. And that's to share your own personal stories and experiences as we normalize all of this. There are mental health resources, though, available in Manitoba as well. So remember, you can dial now 211 from your phone, or you can go to mb.211.ca and you can access some immediate support.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
I'm really concerned.
And I'm not really happy about that.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take. I'm Janet Stewart. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
It just brings everyone together.
Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you, weekdays on CBC.
Well, let's go to sports now. There's so much to talk about, but let's start in the hard court with Scott Regehr. Hey, Scott.
Watermelon or blue raspberry? What kind of, this sour
Watermelon.
I got to know.
It's
watermelon.
I
You got
love
great
that you. I
taste,
love
yeah?
that you knew that. Yeah.
Yeah, Jolly Rancher is my preferred one, but there you are.
That is the best Jolly Rancher. You
Yeah.
are correct. Let's talk about Boston. Maybe on its way to an NBA championship. That's fun.
Yeah, the Celtics have looked mostly untroubled, Marcy, in winning the first couple of games of the finals at home. Last night they got by Dallas, despite their best player, Jason Tatum, having a really tough time shooting the ball. He finished with 18 points. No matter, says Tatum.
I've been here before and we didn't win. Why would I let my ego or my need to score get in the way of that? There are going to be times where, I need to score, and obviously I need to shoot better. Golly. But if I need to have 16 potential assists every single night, and that's what puts us in the best position to win, and it doesn't mean I'm the leading scorer, sign me up.
Underutilized word, golly, if you ask me. The series resumes in Dallas on Wednesday. Meantime, Marcy, members of the Winnipeg Sea Bears had reason to say, oh my gosh, yesterday. They lost badly to Calgary and are now 4-4 on the CEBL season.
Bombers back out practicing yesterday. What stood out for you?
Well, who was not practicing? Two of the biggest offensive weapons, Kenny Lawler and Brady Oliveira, were absent. Lawler left last game early with what is being reported as a forearm fracture. Head coach Mike O'Shea would not confirm those reports, but did say Lawler is going to need more than a week for sure. Things look better for Oliveira. O'Shea says his star running back got nicked up and needed an extra day of rest, but should be good to go Thursday in Ottawa. Meantime, another player who looks to be playing is Adam Bighill, the veteran linebacker, in full pads and practicing with starters yesterday. As he is currently on the 6-game injured list, it does come of a bit of a surprise. Bighill says this isn't a rush decision.
We got a good sweat in today, and feet got hot from running around fast, and that's what you want. So I feel good. I'm coming back at exactly the right time. It's what our medical team believes. It's what I believe. So, at the end of the day, you follow direction from the people that take good care of us.
Should he play, it would be a welcome addition to the defense, obviously. Last week, the Bombers gave up an average of over 6 yards per play. Nowhere to go but up, and that's the case.
No kidding. And hello, hockey night in Canada. Big night, actually, in a couple of fronts, to be honest.
Yeah, the Oilers, Marcy, look to find an answer for Sergei Bobrovsky, the Florida goalie. Shut Edmonton out in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals Saturday. The Oilers had more than double the number of shots, so you do wonder whether Bobrovsky's got inside their heads to some degree. Edmonton trying to end this long Canadian Cup drought of more than 3 decades. Falling in the first game does not help their cause. Historically, those who win the opener go on to claim the Cup 76% of the time. Meantime, there is a close to 100% likelihood that Sarah Fillier will be the top pick in tonight's PWHL draft. The Georgetown, Ontario native and Princeton University grad is a generational talent, a forward considered the Connor McDavid of the women's game. New York will count themselves lucky then. They will select first tonight, although thanks to that unique rule in the PWHL where the team that accrues the most points after being eliminated from the playoffs gets the number 1 pick. It wasn't all about luck. I love that rule in the PWHL.
All right. Thanks, Scott. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Sounds good.
That's Scott Regehr with Morning Sports on CBC. Well, coming up in the next half hour, we actually are going to meet a former Bison women's hockey player who's only 24, but has already made her mark on and off the ice in a major way. She is one of CBC Manitoba's Future 40 finalists. Stay tuned. Right now, your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is sunny, it's calm, 11 degrees right now. Beautiful start to the day, a high of 23, exactly where we should be for this time of year. But clouds do move in this afternoon, bringing with them some showers this evening. A group of healthcare aides from a long-term care facility in Winnipeg's North End is pleading for help. They say work conditions at Holy Family Home are so overwhelming it's putting residents and employees' physical and mental health at risk. Melda Macalino has been an aide on the night shift for 24 years. She's on disability, she says, after facing nonstop pressure from patients calling for help all at once. Macalino says she and other aides have to care for 20 residents each, and when a coworker takes a break, the load goes up to 40 people for each aide.
Even it's hard for you to do it, you have to do it. You have to do it because no one will look after them. And something happened, you're the one who will be blamed because you're the one who's on the floor.
In an email, Holy Family Home says it recently hired 2 float workers to cover breaks, but Macalino says there are frequent absences every week, and the floats just end up filling in for the people who call in sick. The AIDS union, CUPE, says it has filed 2 grievances on their behalf. The NDP government has hired a former Winnipeg detective to lead its police complaints agency. Harman Wuda is appointed as the new commissioner of Manitoba's Law Enforcement Review Agency. That agency investigates public complaints about the conduct of municipal police. Almost 90% of the complaints they investigate involve Winnipeg police officers. Ian Scott is the former head of Ontario's Special Investigations Unit. He says the hire is bad for public confidence in the agency.
If I were a Winnipeg resident, I would be skeptical of particularly hiring a Winnipeg former police officer to be involved in civilian oversight of policing within Winnipeg.
Justice Minister Matt Wiebe says he is confident in the decision made by the hiring committee. The trial of Jeremy Skibitsky is expected to hear from an expert who assessed the mental state of the admitted Winnipeg serial killer today. Skibitsky has pleaded not guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder in the 2022 deaths of Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, Rebecca Contois, and an unidentified woman given the name Mushkode Bishike Ikue Iban. Skibitsky's lawyers say while he has admitted to killing the women, they plan to argue he's not criminally responsible because of a mental disorder. The trial is expected to wrap later this week. The Trudeau government gets the ball rolling today on its plan to increase the capital gains tax. Here's Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland.
We could choose to give the greatest tax advantages to those who are already the most well off. Or we could ask every Canadian to pay their fair share. In Canada, we believe in fairness.
Freeland's looking to make 66% of capital gains taxable above $250,000. The current rate is 50%. The estimated rate hike will generate more than $19 billion in revenue over the next 5 years, and Freeland says that money will go towards housing programs and health care. A CBC investigation has uncovered the details of a study carried out 10 years ago in Saskatchewan by an American scientist. The study involved experiments carried out on Indigenous children. Critics are questioning why it was sanctioned in the first place. You can hear more on this story and other national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. The general manager of Winnipeg's Animal Services Agency is urging you not to abandon your pets. Over the weekend, the Humane Society found 10 abandoned animals on its doorstep. Leland Gordon says it is concerning.
Don't just drop the pet overnight outside in a box. Something bad can happen to that pet. It could be
it could be taken away. There could be wildlife out there that could do something to it. So don't abandon it.
The Humane Society says a dog was found tied to a tree with a note. There was also a note on a box of 6 rats, and there was a mother cat with 2 kittens. A hero's welcome for young Indigenous volunteers at Richardson International. The teens returning from the Dominican Republic, where they helped build a house for charity. Organizers say the goal was to inspire Indigenous young people to build for the future and to learn from other cultures. Trey Gladu was struck by how friendly everyone was.
It's really life-changing. It opens your eyes about a lot of things and how you don't need to be family to be there for each other, I guess. Just working as a team to try to get the house done, and we ended up getting her done. So
more than a dozen young people volunteered for the initiative, each raising $3,000 to help build that house. You can read more on all of these stories on our website this morning, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Love that story. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
We actually are going to talk to someone who is traveling with the young people coming up after 8 o'clock on the show, so we'll have even more detail for you on that story. Stay with us. Right now it's 7:36 on your Monday morning. It is June the 10th. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and in sunny downtown, we're coming to you live from our CBC studios. Abby's here with a look at our regional forecast. Abby?
Good morning once again. It's clear skies. We're seeing currently 11 degrees. Expect a mix of sun and clouds today. Perfect for outdoor activities. Temperatures will reach in a pleasant 23 degrees. Now, as the day progresses, the clouds will gather and then bring in about 5 to 10 millimeters of rain tonight. A breezy southerly wind will accompany the rain, making a slightly windy night ahead. And tomorrow we can anticipate lingering showers and possibility of a thunderstorm in the late afternoons. Heading west to Brandon, it is currently 9 degrees with partly cloudy skies. Rain is expected to start later this afternoon and we'll be seeing a high of 20. Moving north to Thompson, where it's cool at 7 degrees. It's mainly sunny at the moment. Today's forecast calls for lots of sunshine with fog patches dissipating this morning, and the highs will be reaching 20. Churchill is currently at 12 degrees and mainly sunny. We'll be seeing a high of 18 today with clear skies throughout the day. Now moving down to Dauphin, it's 7 and sunny at the moment. Rain is expected to begin sometime this afternoon, totaling about 5 millimeters, and we'll be seeing a high of 19. For folks in Gimli, it is currently 9 degrees, some sunshine, and it's clear. For the Interlake region, expect sunny skies, then some clouds will crawl in later in the afternoon, and we'll be seeing a high of 22. Steinbach is currently sitting at 8 degrees with clear skies and also sunny. Today's forecast includes sunshine, increasing cloudiness, and we'll be heading to a high of 23. Morris is at 19 and clear, heading to a high of 23. Nice sky out in Winnipeg. It is 11. We're starting the day with some sunshine, some clouds. We'll move in the afternoon, and we're climbing to a high of 23. Then some rain beginning in the evening, lasting into tomorrow.
I got to apologize to my neighbors because last week, one day, it was like, when we go to work, like 4 a.m., you open the door and first look at weather. So I thought it was going to be really nice out, like the first day without a rain jacket in a long time. So my neighbors probably heard me go creak and then go, come on! I actually said it out loud, and then I'm like, whoa, sorry, everybody.
People are sleeping.
People are sleeping.
I know. I should have done it in my head. Anyway, I went back and got the jacket. As Abby said, though, don't forget it today, because depending on how long you're going to be out today, it is going to be rainy again come tonight, at least in Winnipeg. All right, let's find out what's going on if you're out and about this morning. It's time to update the commute with Chloe Friesen.
Good morning. I got a call from Ron on the commuter line mentioning that Corridon and Cambridge, the lights at that intersection are in a red flash. There was a collision. The car is on the boulevard, so it's not blocking any lanes, but that intersection is in a red flash. So treat it as an always stop. Signal crews are on the way, so that is some good news. But Corridon and Cambridge, just be careful as you are approaching that intersection. We are also looking at Abinogi-Mikana. There's a construction zone from Pembina to St. Anne's. Your eastbound lane is closed until November 8th. Another one of those, Marcy, for street construction. And there's a reduced speed zone, so be very aware of that. You can expect some delays in that area as well. If there's anything else slowing you down or getting in your way, give us a call, 204-788-3093.
Thanks, Chloe. Well, next on the show, the 24-year-old former Bison's women hockey player who is my next guest is now in law school, and her name is Treshelle Bunn. And her list of accomplishments is long and growing. She founded a half marathon to promote healing around residential schools. She was named a young chief by Southern Chiefs on Southern Chiefs organization last year. Now the list has one more of accolades. This morning, Bunn and 9 other outstanding people have been named CBC Future 40 finalists. And it's one of my favorite times of the year because we get to interview all of them and meet them. And Treshelle Bunn is up first. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Congratulations on being named a Future 40 finalist. What did you think when all this happened?
It was pretty surreal, and I think, anytime you get an acknowledgement like this, it's a great accomplishment, but I think it's truly not mine on my own. It's definitely a testament to all the communities and organizations that I get to be a part of and serve, so I think it's just as much as mine as it is theirs, so I'm very thankful and fortunate to be able to receive this award and hopefully inspire other young people to pursue their passions and dreams and to be involved in their community.
We featured you, as I alluded to here, like in a number of different ways over the years for your work. One of them is about your hockey prowess when you were just 15 years old. What role has hockey played in shaping who you are, would you say?
Yeah, I think hockey is just a huge part of who I am, and I started skating in my backyard with my dad when I was just 3 years old, and it's kind of been my thing for my whole life up to this point. And I finished my competitive hockey career last year with the U of M, and then I play once a week now in the Law Hockey League at the University of Manitoba Faculty of Law. So I think,
oh my gosh, I bet you're the ringer.
one of the few women playing. So I think still maybe breaking down barriers a little bit in that way. But no, hockey's definitely shaped who I am, and I think it's given me so many opportunities. And I think it's always been kind of a positive outlet for me, just to stay balanced in all aspects of my life.
How did that sort of grow and really become significant when you were playing at that real competitive level, like with the Dinos and then the Bisons, as you mentioned?
Yeah, I think definitely as a student athlete, you get overwhelmed and your feet and hands are in kind of all different spaces. So I think getting to start my morning every day, with a team workout, a team practice, a team skate, and kind of getting your body moving early in the morning and having that movement has always been kind of a way that I like to start my day and kind of sets the tone for the rest of it. So I think definitely using movement as, medicine, or even staying balanced on, the 4 quadrants of the medicine wheel, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I really owe that to hockey and sport in general.
I really love this part of your story that led you to do another one of your accomplishments, which is a run, because you're an athlete, but you're actually not much of a runner, I understand. And yet in 2021, you start the Reconciliation Run, and there's words from, I understand, your grandfather in your head. Mm-hmm. What were the words and why?
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned that. I'm not a runner at all. So any of my old teammates who would hear this would know that I'm not a runner. But something that my grandfather, so my Uncle, which means grandfather in Dakota in my language, he was a survivor of the Birtle Residential School, and something he told me when I was younger was that when he was at the Birtle Residential School, he wanted nothing more than to run away and go home. And he never did make the attempt himself, just because he saw the consequences of what happened to his classmates who did make the attempt. So I guess, when, the 215 recoveries in Kamloops kind of hit the news, and, there's still recoveries happening. I think it hit my community and a lot of Indigenous and First Nation communities in that way. So I thought, why don't we go back to the Birtle Residential School and run and walk home in honor of, my grandfather, but all of those who never got the chance to.
I apologize. Well, I know your grandfather is now deceased, but I apologize for not knowing. Were there other family members, though, that were able to share in that and feel that on his behalf when you started this? Because that's so amazing.
Yeah, so it really started as something that me and my family were doing. So my mom, my dad, my brother, and my cousins, and my grandparents, my other grandparents. But it really reached my community, and then it kind of hit social media, and I think some different news outlets picked it up, and we had, about probably the first healing walk that we did July 1st, 2021. We had around 75 people gather, on the front lawn of the Birtle Residential School from all different areas and towns and backgrounds across Manitoba. So I think it really brought people together in that way, and for a lot of Indigenous people and First Nations people, it was healing, but I think for a lot of non-Indigenous people, it also kind of provided that education and reflection component.
How did a couple hundred boxes of new running shoes end up stacked outside your apartment door last summer? This is another initiative, right?
Yeah, so that's kind of a partnership that the Reconciliation Run, we partnered with Under Armour Canada, and I was featured in the Canadian Running Magazine, and part of that kind of promotion was that they were going to donate, do a product donation of my choosing, and it was kind of a big ask, and I was a little hesitant to ask, but I asked, and I said, would it be possible to get, brand new pair of running shoes for every young person in my community. And they said, for sure, just send us over the sizes and how much you need. And I came home one day and there's about over 200 pairs of shoes outside my apartment. So I think that was amazing. And we kind of just loaded up my partner's truck and we drove out to Birdtail one day and we called it Birdtail Sioux Under Armour Day. And we handed out, 200 pairs of shoes to every young person in my community. And I think, their smiles is something I'll remember forever.
That's so cool. So cool. What was it like being elected one of the Southern Chiefs Organization Youth Chiefs last year?
Yeah, I think that's a great honor as well. And I think that kind of speaks to my growing comfortability with being a leader and being a role model. And I talk about it often, but it's not really being a role model and leader wasn't something I was always comfortable with. And I think I'm kind of more of a lead by example kind of person. I've never been the loudest in the room. So I think that was a true kind of powerful moment for me to be able to have my leadership skills recognized. And I'm coming up on the end of my term here next April. So I think, over the past, year and a half, it's the opportunities I've had to connect with young people across, Southern Manitoba has been life-changing.
You're not done, though. I understand you aspire maybe to be chief one day for your community.
Yeah, so that's definitely a stepping stone. And that's something that I kind of put out there this past weekend in my community of Birdtail. And, our next election's coming up next April. So I think a couple of people have asked me to put my name forward. So maybe this is an official announcement that I'm going to step up and put my name forward. But I think it'd be a great honor. And I've always kind of wanted to, get my education and go back and serve my people. So
you decided then? You are putting your name forward?
I am putting my name forward, yeah. So I guess This is maybe the official announcement. So I have a lot of community support, a lot of elders. And I think I talk about it a lot, but I feel like it's my duty to my community, a responsibility that I take seriously. So they asked me, so I'm going to put my best foot forward and give it my best shot, and we'll see what happens come next April.
With your studies, looking at what you're still studying, why did you decide to pursue law?
Yeah, so I think there's like a number of things with that. My father's First Nations, and he's First Nations, and he's an RCMP officer. So I think there's kind of maybe a bit of a dichotomy there with that. But he's always talked to me about the importance of representation within, every area in this country to have First Nations, Indigenous representation. And I think, with the over-incarceration of Indigenous people, especially within this province and Indigenous young people, I think trying to be a part of that and getting my legal education and helping people navigate that system was the biggest driver behind that for me.
You're already working on a new legal aid initiative you're getting to work on, right? What is it?
So it's Legal Aid Manitoba has a partnership with the University of Manitoba Community Law Center. So they have a variety of clinics, but this is the first summer they're doing a prison law clinic. It's kind of modeled after one that first happened at Queen's University. So it's working out of Stony Mountain and kind of representing inmates, incarcerated individuals in grievances and things like that, and being able to, kind of go inside and provide sometimes people who don't get forgot about and don't get justice, like once they're incarcerated, and bringing that justice to them. So it's a really unique initiative, and I'm fortunate to be part of it for the first pilot program this summer.
You're an incredible young Manitoban. Absolutely. I wonder what you would say to those that are listening this morning that might be even younger, even little kids, even teenagers who are feeling maybe even hopeless, like, oh, she's amazing, but that'll never be me.
I think I hope that I can just inspire people with my story. And I think my biggest thing I like to stress is that, everyone has the gift of leadership. It's just being able to find your voice in the way that you want to lead. And like I said earlier, I was never the loudest. And I think you kind of, when you're a young kid, maybe the people who are the loudest in the classroom always you get picked to speak and stuff like that. But I think just kind of finding your own way. And I think I never kind of really imagined the impacts that, the run would have on my community and these different roles that I would come to take on. So I think, just putting yourself out there and being confident in who you are.
Thank you very much for giving us time on CBC, and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
That is Trae Shelbon, member of Birdtail Sioux First Nation, studying law at the U of M, and officially announcing today that she's going to run for chief of her community. She's one of 10 CBC Future 40 finalists. They are all announced today on our website. Please see the beautiful photos and the stories that go along with these incredible Manitobans, and we'll be featuring them on the program this week. So the website is cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Hi, I'm Paul Havershrud, host of The Cost of Living, a national business show that looks at everything the world of money touches, which, admittedly, is a lot of stuff.
The Cost of Living. Go beyond the facts and figures and discover the compelling business stories that affect the day-to-day lives of Canadians right across the country. Economics, business, and you. The Cost of Living with host Paul Havershrud. Available now on CBC Listen.
Wow, Future 40 always makes you feel so uplifted when I speak to these amazing Manitobans. 11 degrees in Common, Winnipeg, by the way. Lots of sunshine out there on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. Thanks for being with us. Well, coming up after 8 o'clock, we're going to hear about several Manitoba Indigenous young youth who went abroad to do humanitarian work in the Dominican Republic. You might have heard part of this on the news this morning. For some of the youth, it was even the first time they had been in an airplane. And we'll hear more about someone who was on the journey with them. So that's coming up after 8 o'clock. Right now, though, over this weekend, you might have been out to one of our many lakes. Maybe you were at one of the cottage areas around Lake Winnipeg specifically. Well, if you were, there's a chance that you saw something that is less than beautiful. A resident of Sandy Hook says there's a lot of pollution on Lake Winnipeg right now. Linda Mose has lived in Sandy Hook, which is just north of Gimli, for a decade. And she says she's seeing new types of garbage washing up on shore.
When I get up in the morning, I like to go down, and I'm grateful for where we live, and I go down and say hello to the lake. And unfortunately, we went down there and we were just totally shocked by how bad, like we've seen, there's odd things coming around. I mean, it is a lake and it is a huge body of water and the winds change, but we've never ever seen what we saw that day with the pollution and it was not a doubt that it was sewer. There was sanitary, female hygiene products. There were needles, syringes, and a lot of debris. And it was very shocking to see that.
That was Linda Mose talking about the pollution that she recently saw firsthand in Sandy Hook. Now, Alexis Canoe is the executive director of Lake Winnipeg Foundation, and she's with us this morning. Good morning.
Hi, Marcy.
So I know that you've said before that you believe that this type of garbage, is coming from Winnipeg. Can you elaborate on what makes you say that?
Well, when I saw Linda's photos, it was like a gut punch. It immediately reminded me of a combined sewer overflow that I experienced one February a couple of years ago along the Assiniboine River near my house. We were out walking along the beautiful riverbank in the winter, and the water was so low that the combined sewer overflow pipes were discharging onto the ice. And I saw sitting on the ice of the Assiniboine River exactly what Linda saw on the shores of Lake Winnipeg. We know that the sewer pipe that's broken at Abinogi-Mickinaw keeps discharging with these spring storms that we're having. And so that sewer spill that everyone was horrified with in February is not over. It's ongoing.
So obviously Linda was describing the garbage, feminine hygiene products, needles, etc. Do you have a sense of how often people are reporting specifically those types of things now?
Well, I actually get notifications from the city of Winnipeg when the sewage spills overflow, when there's an unregulated discharge of sewage. And that's been happening almost daily for the past couple of weeks. We've all experienced these extreme storms. Those are causing overflows at the broken pipe at the pumping station at Abinogi-Mackinac.
Have you seen pollution levels like this before?
Well, we've always known that we're discharging far too much phosphorus into Lake Winnipeg from our wastewater treatment plants. And it's really important to note that the North End treatment plant is releasing non-compliant effluent and has been doing so for decades. The phosphorus load coming out of that treatment plant is the single largest point source to Lake Winnipeg, and it's absolutely something that we need to address. It needs to be a priority for the city and the province. But it doesn't discount the fact that the rest of the system is also in need of upgrades. And I think what we've seen is a deficit across our entire sewage treatment system in the city of Winnipeg. But what we're seeing on our beaches is the consequence of turning a blind eye to what we're doing to water in the city.
The city said to CBC in a statement, quote, "It's difficult to conclusively determine the source of litter in the region as there are multiple communities, campgrounds, cottages, and other properties in the area, not to mention substantial recreational activity on the lake, including large ice fishing areas in the winter months." End quote. What's your reaction to the response?
I think it then falls upon Manitoba Environment, the provincial environmental regulator, and Environment and Climate Change Canada, who enforce the Federal Fisheries Act, to investigate and tell us all conclusively where this sewage waste is coming from. This is a violation of federal legislation, of Environmental Act licenses, and our higher levels of government have a responsibility to investigate and to tell us both what happened and what the impacts of it are.
How big of an impact does sewage have on the lake?
Excess phosphorus from Winnipeg sewage is one of the significant causes of algal blooms on the lake. It's certainly not the only cause, and we can't stop at solutions for Winnipeg sewage treatment. We need to look within agricultural areas of the watershed for solutions as well. But I think this is a very tangible experience of that impact, right? Walking down to the beach, saying hello to the lake in the morning, and then when you encounter this sludgy brown water, when you encounter these plastic pieces of garbage washing up on shore, that's certainly not the lake that Manitobans and people who live on its shores are expecting to meet. What it's going to take to get ahead of this is citizens speaking up. And I know it's a long-term challenge. It can be frustrating and daunting. But when we work together, we do actually have tangible impacts on improving this. So LWF and its members have been advocating for an interim phosphorus reduction solution at the North End Treatment Plant. This is an idea we first brought forward in 2018. And later this month, that interim phosphorus reduction solution will be up and running at the North End Treatment Plant. That's a tangible infrastructure solution that was implemented because of the advocacy of regular lake lovers. And governments had no choice but to listen and require this solution to be implemented.
What would you ask the Premier? He's on our program this week for the regular monthly interview that we have with him here on CBC. What would your question to him be around your concerns?
I would urge the Premier to look to the widely available evidence that supports a phosphorus-first approach to sewage treatment. That research comes out of the world-renowned Experimental Lakes area in northwestern Ontario. The scientists that conduct that research live right here in Winnipeg, and it's high time that our province recognizes the weight of that evidence and uses it to guide our environmental policy.
Thank you for your time this morning, Alexis.
Thanks very much, Marcy.
Alexis Canoe, the executive director of the Lake Winnipeg Foundation. I was in conversation with her on Friday about what a resident of Sandy Hook saw on the shores of the lake at the end of May. And you've seen some photos up on our site this morning, rather on our YouTube stream this morning while we were hearing the interview. Now, the city of Winnipeg, as I alluded to during the conversation, in addition to the statement I read earlier, also said they're committed to, quote, protecting Lake Winnipeg, and this is demonstrated by the upgrades we're making at our sewage treatment plants and the implementation of the combined sewer overflow master plan, end quote. That interview, by the way, regular interview with the Premier coming up on Thursday this week. It is 3 minutes now to 8. Heather Wells is in with headlines.
Good morning. 8 healthcare aides have come together to speak out about work conditions at Holy Family Home. They say repeated instances of understaffing at the nonprofit personal care home in the North End are putting residents and employees at risk of physical and mental harm. We'll hear more. And closing arguments are expected today at the Winnipeg trial of an admitted serial killer. Jeremy Skibitsky has pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder in the 2022 murders of 4 Indigenous women. Your next Manitoba News coming your way at 8:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
With quick traffic, here's Chloe Friesen.
Corden and Cambridge, the lights in that intersection are in a red flash, so treat that as an always stop. There are signal crews on the way, so if they are there, you're also going to want to be careful. Again, that's Corden and Cambridge. If there's anything else getting in your way, 204-788-3093.
11 degrees, mainly sunny in Winnipeg. Today's high 23. We do have rain in the forecast, but it's not until this evening in the city of Winnipeg. Well, coming up on the program, we're going to hear about the experiences that several Indigenous youth had building a home for someone in need in the Dominican Republic. We caught up with them at the airport, and we're actually going to speak to someone that was traveling with them and hear more from the youth as well. So we'll build on a story that you might have heard part of in the news this morning, and it's all coming up after 8. Right now, 1 minute 2 on World Report is next.
Today on Q.
I'm Nav Nanwa sitting in for Tom Power. George Clinton's P-Funk sound has been a huge influence on so many artists from the likes of Prince, Snoop Dogg to Janelle Monáe. Dr. Funkenstein himself will tell you all about his wild and funky life in music.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
The Paris Olympics are coming up in just over a month, and Canadian race walker Evan Dunphy, one of the world's fastest walkers, is getting set for a long, fast walk. Evan Dunphy on what it means to win and lose, coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. A major shakeup is happening in European politics. Voters moved right in EU parliamentary elections. Now in France, a snap election has been called, and the political uncertainty is affecting the markets in Paris. The euro is down, France bank shares are sliding, and the CAC 40 index has fallen to a 3-month low. Susan Ormiston is in Brussels with the latest.
France has been plunged into snap elections in 3 weeks after Marine Le Pen's Nationalist Party surged in support Sunday. The French have spoken in this historical election, said Le Pen. When the people vote, the people win. President Emmanuel Macron is hoping a fresh national vote will restore support for his party and his leadership, but it's a big gamble. Europeans sent a clear message. Parties on the right and far right gaining traction in France, Austria, Italy, and Germany.
It's
shocking and daunting, said this German voter, to see how many people voted for these parties. But in the EU Parliament,
the centre is holding.
Ursula von der Leyen, running for another term as EU Commissioner, said the centre-right is still the majority.
We will build a bastion against the extremes from the left and from the right. We will stop them. This is for sure.
Europe's Green Party hemorrhaged support, especially in Germany and amongst youth.
The far right is not interested in doing legislation on the Green Deal.
Bas Eickhout, for the Greens, said the EU must stand up clearly for climate targets and ongoing legislation. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Brussels.
The Bloc Québécois is leading a movement in the House of Commons. It wants to expand the mandate of Justice Marie-Josée Hogue's inquiry into foreign interference, and other parties agree. They say it is necessary after an explosive report revealed some MPs were knowingly involved in foreign election meddling. Janice McGregor is in our parliamentary bureau. And Janice, what is this Bloc motion about?
Marcia, the original terms of reference for Justice Marie-Josée Hogue were negotiated behind closed doors. Today, we're going to see all the political parties in the House of Commons debate in public whether that work needs to be explicitly expanded. This motion calls for the public inquiry to investigate federal democratic institutions, including both senators and the MPs from the last two parliaments. In a letter over the weekend, Conservative House Leader Andrew Scheer suggested the commissioner should be now going over all this unredacted information that the special committee saw, and that she should make what he called a finding of fact for each case involving an MP or senator, not asking the justice to pronounce on whether this meets the threshold for criminal guilt, but setting up some kind of an independent examination in a procedurally fair way. Conservatives want these findings reported back to Parliament by October 1st. We'll see if the government agrees with this approach, which might avoid some of the risks of a minister just naming names. New Democrat Alexandre Boulris put out a statement this weekend saying his party will back this approach as a way to restore public confidence. His colleague Jenny Kwan, who CSIS believes is now an evergreen target for foreign interference, told Rosemary Barton Live that Canadians deserve to know more.
For all the people that's sitting around the entire table, all 338 elected members of Parliament, we're all under suspicion now.
Janice, the government has introduced Bill C-70 to combat foreign election meddling. How are efforts to get that bill passed going?
Huge push, Marcia, to get this passed before summer recess. Both Senate and House committees set for marathon meetings later today. This bill will expand the capabilities of security agencies like CSIS to respond to threats, allow them to share more information. It sets up a foreign influence registry to track people who work on behalf of foreign governments. Opposition parties are proposing dozens of amendments. We'll see how much the text of this bill is set to change here.
All right, thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor reporting from Ottawa. The federal Liberals say they are ready to get the ball rolling on increasing the capital gains tax. Here is Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland.
We could choose to give the greatest tax advantages to those who are already the most well off. Or we could ask every Canadian to pay their fair share. In Canada, we believe in fairness.
The government is expected to table a Ways and Means motion in the House of Commons later today. That is the first step before proposing new tax legislation. Right now, only 50% of capital gains are taxable. The government wants to raise that to 66% on capital gains above $250,000. Freeland says the tax hike is necessary for Canada to pay for things like housing and health care. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi officially begins his third term today. Modi is greeted by staff in India's parliament. He was sworn in over the weekend, but his party did not receive the level of support in the election it was expecting. That means Modi had to rely on other parties to form a majority coalition. Many critics say the 6-week-long elections were anything but democratic. They accuse Modi and his party of using strong-arm tactics to quiet his political opponents. Hunter Biden's criminal gun trial resumes this morning. Biden is facing 3 felony charges after he allegedly purchased a firearm illegally back in 2018. The CBC's Richard Madden joins me now from Washington. And Richard, what are we expecting as this trial enters the home stretch?
Yeah, the trial itself is moving faster than anticipated. The defense team is expected to wrap up arguments as early as today, and they've signaled Hunter Biden could take the witness stand on his own behalf. Now, this is a risky move that could open him up to cross-examination, the first time in U.S. history that a sitting president's child is on trial. Now, Hunter Biden has pleaded not guilty to lying on federal forms by failing to disclose his drug use when he bought a gun back in 2018. Throughout the trial, his partners, his daughter, have testified about his struggles with addiction. Prosecutors use Hunter Biden's own words from his memoir describing his abuse of crack cocaine. His stepmother, First Lady Jill Biden, has been in attendance for most of it. His father, President